Hello everybody, welcome to the next episode of New Earth TV Live. Very happy to be with you all again here today for a very special episode, of course. And that is basically going to be doing a little bit of a follow-up on the previous New Earth Teachings episode that debuted earlier this week, which was the true nature of the sun. And of course I'm going to be talking about the Culminating Solar Event. It's nothing to be scared of, nothing to be worried about, nothing to be afraid of, right? Because I'm going to be talking about this. The reason why I'm doing this episode today was that it was a direct conversation with Spirit, right? So this is not something that I was just looking up or looking into ancient research or anything of that nature. This is a direct conversation that I was having with Spirit. I was basically just in my kitchen preparing some food, and I was getting this download from Spirit, and it was very, very conversational about the nature of the culminating solar event. Nothing to be afraid of again. You guys want to be aware of the fear porn that is out there relating to that stuff, and it's not something to fear once you understand it, once you understand how it works, because it is in complement to what was shared through the True Nature of the Sun episode of New Earth Teachings. I hope you guys have checked that out, by the way. If you guys have not checked that out, that is on my YouTube channel. Go ahead and check it out. I think it's still one of the best episodes I've ever done, because I did a first season of New Earth Teachings last year with a few episodes as well too. That one I really enjoy because I was doing some research with it, ancient research, Vedic science, Nikola Tesla's own research as well too, and of course a lot of the stuff that comes through me through intuitive guidance. So go ahead and check that out, guys. If you haven't seen that episode yet, I think you'll really enjoy it. So of course, first we're going to go ahead and get started and get kicked off with some announcements, and then we'll be getting into the presentation today. Beautiful, sacred geometrical clothing, apparel, and accessories imbued with spirit source energy to heal, rejuvenate, detoxify, and strengthen the body. Shop now at healingcodeshop.com.
The latest revelation in alternative healing has arrived. The Healing Code Cards, a spiritual technology unlike anything else. Through the power of sacred geometry imbued with pure source energy, physical ailments can become eliminated and detoxified from your body. 36 cards specifically designed to work on the major areas of the body, encouraging natural recovery and increased vitality. Working with the cards are easy, and their healing results are profound. Download our collection of free sample cards so you can experience results for yourself. And don't forget to view our customer testimonials. Our printed Healing Code card deck is available now with shipping available worldwide. Visit our website at healingcodecards.com.
Okay, so some people are saying that the microphone is a little bit fuzzy. Can you guys hear me okay? I'll do a little bit of a sound check here, just making sure everything's good. Testing, 1, 2, 3. You guys can hear me okay? Gotta wait a few seconds for the delay. Okay, just doing a mic check here, guys. Making sure the microphone's okay. Can you guys hear me okay? Testing, 1, 2, 3. All right. Yep. See, some people are saying that the microphone's a little bit fuzzy. I don't know. Maybe it's your volume or your headphones. Check it out. Everything looks like it's okay on my end. Anyways, we're gonna go ahead and move on. So there's another announcement that's that I want to share here. There's going to be an Adronis Q&A forum that is going to be happening on June 6th. Okay, so this is going to be a new bi-weekly webinar that I'm going to be doing. The first one is starting on June 6th on a Sunday. Okay, starting at 12 p.m. Pacific time. And it basically will go about an hour and a half to 2 hours. So it's going to be a very strong, it's kind of like in the webinars when I'm doing the last half, when we're doing the kind of open Q&A. So it's called Q&A Forum. I'm going to be doing an official announcement of it next week, but I'll be doing this bi-weekly, right? So every second Sunday, there will just be a special Adronis Q&A forum that you guys can sign up with. It's $4.99, right? So it's $4.99. You guys can ask personal questions, general questions as well too. It's your time with Adronis, right, for about 90 minutes to 2 hours. So I'm looking forward to that. The official announcement for that will roll out next week. So I'll have a poster up for it, and it'll be up on the website as well too. You guys can sign up. And then every 6 weeks, I'll be doing a webinar. All right, so basically the first part will be Adronis Q&A forum. The second bi-weekly event will be another Q&A forum, and then the third event will be a webinar. Now, the next upcoming webinar in 6 weeks' time, approximately 6 weeks' time, will be called Adronis Off-World Liaison. Okay, so you'll actually go through this kind of process that Adronis is going to take you through to helping you connect to a liaison, kind of how Adronis is with me, that you guys would be able to work with, to connect with. Of course, you're the guys that make the connection, but this is going to be a very, very interesting webinar. It's going to be kind of a follow-up from the Galactic Community webinar. So he'll be coming through and he'll be sharing some tactics, some steps, some procedures, some methods to helping you contact your own off-world liaison, right? So this is going to be a very, very interesting webinar. But again, that's going to be happening in about 6 weeks or so. So when the time gets closer, I'll be announcing that as well. So just some things that are up in the air right now, and putting it all together, materializing it into the physical plane. Okay, so guys, we're going to go ahead and get started today with the presentation, which of course is the Culminating Solar Event. Now, a lot of us may tune into other experts, other teachers, right, across the web, and they may talk about the idea of the sun is about to do some kind of gigantic solar flash. It may just start to invert itself, and you'll see its corona, and there'll be a gigantic solar flash, and that's going to lead to an ascension experience and all that. No offense to those guys, but that is complete and total nonsense. All right, that is not what's happening. So yes, there are changes with the sun. There are changes that are happening. There is, fluctuations within the sun's own magnetic field, etc. So yes, a lot of that is happening. We of course get solar plumes, and I don't refer to them as solar flares anymore, right? After doing a lot of this research, there are no solar flares. Okay, there's solar plumes. So basically, it's plumes of water and radiation that comes upon the planet, but these are not accidental. Okay, these are not just random things that are happening. The sun, the earth, and all of the planets that surround the sun have been in harmony for billions of years. And during that time, there has always been solar plumes, and there's been solar activity that's taking place throughout the star system for that great amount of time. Never in that amount of time has any planet been annihilated or been destroyed or life completely threatened just by the nature of the sun. The sun doesn't do that, right? It's like looking at the relationship with the atom, right? You have your proton and you have the electrons. Now, never does that atom say, oh, okay, I'm just in a bad mood today. I'm just going to blow up the rest of the electrons inside the atom. Okay, it's not doing that. And very much it's the microcosm of the macrocosm, as above, so below. So through the idea of the atom with the proton and the electrons, and as our star system with the sun and the surrounding planets and celestial bodies, never has there been an occasion where the sun has intentionally said, you know what, I'm in a bad, foul mood. I'm just going to blow up the planets today. I just feel like it, right? So we want to be aware of things that we read online, right? It's very important that we're going through our own truth filters about this. And even with what I'm sharing with you guys today, make sure you're putting that through your truth filters as well. I'm not excluded from this rule, right? So everything that I share with you today, as Adronis says, is my perspective, is my point of view. For all knowledge, all information, all creation itself resides within your very hearts, beings, and souls. Yes, we'll be getting into Q&A here a little bit later on. Interesting things. Okay, so the question, is there a Q&A? Yes, after I do the presentation, we'll be getting into Q&A. Keep your shirt on, all right? Okay, so what I wanted to share, this is something that I actually wrote down on the day when I was getting this kind of intuitive download from Spirit, right? Like I said, I was in my kitchen, I was just preparing some food, and all of a sudden I was getting this download from Spirit about the Culminating Solar Event. Now, for those of you who have been with this channel for a while, you know that I've talked about 2037 and 2038, okay? And basically 2038 itself represents a culminating time, right? There's another fellow named John von Auken. Okay, I've talked about him as well too, because I'm very much on par with his research, because when I got this prediction about 2037 and 2038, another friend of mine showed me a video of his, and basically it was like we were just kind of coalescing, relating to what he was sharing. He was basically looking into a lot of the Edgar Cayce prophecies about the Great Pyramid. He's looking into the research of the pyramid inch, and he was able to measure out a timeline. And this timeline represented phenomenal accuracy with a lot of the ancient world events leading up to World War I, World War II. All of these things were basically perceived very accurately through this Egyptian pyramid timeline. And what he shares is that this timeline goes all the way up until 2038. So what that means is that all prophecies that have represented our age will conclude in 2038. So this is representing the idea that we're moving into a new age. So a new age. It's kind of like if you look at, if you guys are into J.R.R. Tolkien, right, where he talks about the first age, the second age, the third age in regards to Middle Earth, right? It's kind of like what's happening with us, is that we're moving out of an old age and we're moving into a new age. I would say it's the twilight hours of a golden age, post 2038, right? But anyways, coming into what I received intuitively while I was in the kitchen about the culminating solar event. Now, what I also talked about was 3 days of darkness, okay? This is nothing to be concerned about. Now, 3 days of darkness is going to happen because it's happened before. The Mayans, their ancestors experienced it. The Native Americans, their ancestors experienced it. Many different cultures from all around the world, ancient indigenous cultures, and their ancestors experienced this time. They say it's nothing to be afraid of, right? This is something that's just very, very common. It can happen around 12,000 year cycles, 26,000 year cycles, etc., right? But we're moving up into the time to where there is looking to be a 3-day period of darkness, okay? But there's a reason for that, right? Now, again, a lot of people, like I said, are spouting their theories about a solar flash. It has nothing to do with a solar flash, okay? There are solar plumes, right? Those plumes will continue. We'll still be getting a great burst of energy from the sun, where again, it comes upon the Van Allen radiation belt, comes upon the atmosphere, creating sonoluminescence. Okay, if you guys have watched the second episode, The True Nature of the Sun, you guys should know what sonoluminescence is right now, okay? So again, sonoluminescence, if we're basically submerged underwater, it's basically that intense hit of vibration sound that is generating an incredible vibrational burst of light. It's kind of like, as I talked about, the nature of the mantis shrimp, right? When the mantis shrimp strikes, you can actually hear sound underwater with its intense strike. And its strike is so powerful that people can actually see these bubbles of light, these bursts of light when it attacks, right? That's sonoluminescence. And that's exactly how our sun relates to us having all the light and heat upon our planet, is because of sonoluminescence, right? So I won't get into it too much because you guys can watch the video, right? It's all very nicely prepared and well placed. But the culminating solar event, and this is what I'm just going to read to you guys here. I have the notepad here. The culminating solar event involves a near 3-day period involving the magnetic shifting of the Earth's poles from north to south and south to north. That's all that's happening, everybody, okay? This is not a physical pole shift. This is a magnetic one. That is how the 3 days of darkness happen. I'll go on. During this period, no sonoluminescence is given upon the Earth, as its magnetic field is depolarized during this time of shift. It's like a battery. Okay, if you basically have a battery, and those two poles, right, the positive, the negative, basically are depolarized. The battery cannot operate. So without those poles that are, again, attracting one another, and they short out, so to speak, they're being rearranged, you don't have the sonoluminescent effect. And it's the atmosphere itself that is causing us to see, as if giving an illusion of thinking that the sun is luminescent, when in fact it's not. That's the effect of the atmosphere, that the stars are luminescent. That's not true. That's the idea of the atmosphere. The atmosphere is creating that through sonoluminescence. So basically what's happening is the magnetic poles are shifting, North Pole to South Pole to North Pole, and it's going to switch and shift itself in that way. With a polarized magnetic field like a battery, the Earth cannot receive the sonoluminescent effect from the sun due to depolarization. Once the poles are realigned north to south and south to north, the magnetic field is repolarized, and sonoluminescence from the sun's rays can now continue. Now, how long does it take from the North Pole to go down to the south go to the north? About 3 days. Okay? That is what's happening. This has nothing to do with a solar flash. This has nothing to do with the gigantic solar flare that's trying to belch people off the earth. It's nothing like that at all. That is, again, a bunch of propaganda. It's still people who do not understand the nature of the sun. No offense to them. They haven't done their research. They have not looked into the true nature of the sun. The sun does not have its own heat. The sun does not have its own light. Okay? This has been confirmed through ancient Vedic science, through Nikola Tesla, who also realizes, because he was looking to basically create kind of an artificial sun, just through our atmosphere alone, to therefore utilize that energy source for our own means. And all it is you're just basically having machinery that can reproduce and mimic the same type of vibrational force that the sun's rays are doing upon our Van Allen radiation belt, which functions as an oscillator resonator, and upon our atmosphere that has those millions of vibrations per second. So his intention down the road was to create machinery that would duplicate that. So we would have a type of smaller sun in our atmosphere that we could actually use and harness power off of. That was his intention. He never agreed to the idea of feeling that the sun is just a hot ball of fire or a hot ball of plasma, right? Knowing him, he would think that's absolute nonsense. Even the ancient Vedics knew this as well too, that the sun is not a hot ball of fire sitting in the sky. That is complete and total nonsense. That's as ridiculous as thinking that we evolved from apes. Okay? So again, some people haven't caught up with that research. They're still looking at the sun as, oh, it's a hot ball of fire, it's a hot ball of plasma, it has all this heat and has all this light. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. Not at all. It is our atmosphere that is bringing about that light effect, that is bringing about the heat. It is the oxygen that is the receiver. It is the oxygen that is the reflector, and it's carrying all that heat across our planet. The same goes with all the other planets. This is why planets are luminescent in the sky, right? Our atmosphere is showing us the effects of the sun rays upon them because they're experiencing sonoluminescence as well too, okay? So there is a big, gigantic dupe here relating to people who are afraid of what they do not understand, okay? So from my own perspective, no offense to these people, right? They may be good researchers, but they don't understand how the sun works, okay? When you understand how the sun works, you are not afraid of a solar flash. You are not afraid of some gigantic solar flare that's going to harm the planet or harm the people in that way. The sun has never, ever harmed the earth. The sun has never, ever harmed its surrounding planets. It's like its children, okay? There is a divine order that is happening through the sun and, again, all the plumes that it creates that's going towards these planets. Everything is divinely orchestrated, okay? It is not leading to a disaster. It is not leading to a derogatory or debilitating, rather, situation in regarding our Earth. Actually, when the solar plumes do come upon our Earth, that is a blessed time. The Earth is getting new energy. It's getting this ripe energy coming through, and it's kind of like it's detoxifying, right? It's kind of like the sun is being its nourishment with the light rays, or say just the rays, so to speak, the plume coming in that's creating the light rays and sonoluminescence coming into the Earth through the poles, and that's a detoxification. What the sun is doing is it's being a good father, and it's providing all of this energy for the Earth to utilize so that she can detoxify herself and uplift herself a lot more. That's what the sun does. The sun is a nourisher. The sun is a replenisher. The sun is a purifier. It is not some lethal, violent ball of fire. Again, as we are led to believe. As science will say, just a hot ball of plasma and it could belch us off the face of the earth in any given moment. Okay? That is completely incorrect. It is a purifier, it is a helper, it is a father to this entire star system and to all the planets surrounding it. Okay? So as I said, during this period, everything goes dark as there is no sonoluminescence effect generated by the sun or the surrounding stars. This is because of the depolarized magnetic field. A magnetic field must be polarized and functional for sonoluminescence to take place. This is the reason why it is termed as a 3 days of darkness period. Earth will function through a 3-day period of nightfall, and this time could be of the intensity of a long-lasting eclipse where no light is given. From what Spirit has shared with me, this will be happening most likely in late 2037, but I would say the window altogether would be 2037, 2038, the culmination of prophecy. Everything can happen. Of course, Spirit was very, very set on 2037, so I'm going to leave it that way. But this is an opening. This is not a prediction, as I don't really do predictions anymore. This was something that was given to me a long time ago, and I've been talking about it ever since with 2037, with 2038, and I basically say it's a sharing, right? Spirit would basically refer to this as a prophecy. From my own perspective, it's a sharing, right? Because I don't get into the prediction stuff anymore. But that is, again, what is happening here relating to this solar event, okay? So it's a 3-day period of nightfall. Now, this is where a lot of other researchers basically falter as well, too, because they say, well, yeah, there's a solar flash and then the sun goes dark. No, it doesn't have its light. It doesn't have any light. It doesn't have any heat. It's always dark, right? It's our atmosphere that creates the impression that our sun is illuminated, okay? It's already dark. It doesn't have its own light. It doesn't have its own heat, right? It's already dark. It's our atmosphere. It's our magnetic field. When our magnetic field fluctuates and it is not polarized, the sonoluminescence effect cannot take place. So this is what's happening, because what they talk about is the sun going dark. But what a lot of what the 3 days of darkness talk about is that the entire sky goes dark. You don't even see the stars. You don't see the moonlight of the moon. You don't see the stars. Of course, they think, well, we don't see the moonlight of the moon because the sun is going dark, right? But the sun is always dark. But that doesn't explain the stars. So what about the stars, though? Let's ignore that. Let's go on to something else. They don't have an answer for that, okay? When the ancient people have talked about the idea of the 3 days of darkness, right? They've talked about everything goes dark. You don't even see the light of the stars in the sky, right? It goes completely dark. Well, how is that possible? It's possible because of sonoluminescence, right? So basically, when the magnetic fields are depolarizing, that effect of sonoluminescence cannot happen. That magnetic field is required in order for us to actually witness the luminous effects of the atmosphere, showing us the stars, showing us the sun. It's like a lens, okay? That lens is out of commission for 3 days as the poles shift from north to south, from south to north, right? This is why you don't see the stars in the sky. It's because of a depolarization of the magnetic field. And it takes approximately 3 days for this to take full effect, to repolarize itself, where then you see the stars and you see the luminescence of the sun through our atmosphere again. Okay? That's it, guys. That's all that's happening. So, some people may get kind of freaked out because there's 3 days of darkness, right? Well, there's 3 days of darkness. And some people have created other theories as well, too, is during this time the continents could slip and the mantle is getting slippery. No, that's a bunch of nonsense. That's not happening either. Again, it's just a lot of fear porn that people get into. And the idea is that, as the ancients have talked about it, said, no, it had nothing to do with slipping continents, had nothing to do with the mantle being slippery, had nothing to do with a physical pole shift. It's a magnetic one. It's a magnetic pole shift. All that's happening is that there's 3 days of darkness. Now, again, it's like a worldwide eclipse, okay? So basically, it's just like we've experienced, we're having eclipses coming up here very shortly as well, too, right? But just as we've had eclipses in the past, we're, again, going through a 3-day phase of that. So, again, the approximation is 2037, 2038, to when this time will happen, okay? But, again, that's just my sharing. Maybe some things change. Maybe I'm a lunatic. I don't know. But that's what I've been given. In regards to 2037, 2038, with a period of 3 days of darkness, Spirit has really insisted upon that this is exactly what's happening, because it's representing a very powerful state of transformation. It's a metamorphosis time. Even the ancients would talk about that as well, too. It's a period of great change. It's a period of great metamorphosis. It's a period where society shifts itself. It's kind of like being back in the womb for 3 days, right? And that some people will panic, and this is why it's a good idea maybe just to stay indoors, stay in a place where you have your own privacy, right? Where you're not basically involving yourself with people who are getting super freaked out because there's 3 days of darkness, right? Again, I've talked about this, about 2037, 2038, in regards to 3 days of darkness before. But that's all that's happening. This is not leading to some gigantic inversion of the sun's corona and a big belching of a solar flare and all that stuff. So I'm getting all the fear porn out of this particular prophecy, out of this prediction, right? All that's happening is, yes, we're having like a 3-day effect of a worldwide like solar eclipse. Okay, nothing to be afraid of. Light some candles, meditate, sing some songs, sing Kumbaya, right? Have that 3 days of splendor, okay? This is not meant to be a fearful event. This is something that's natural. Like I said, it's something that occurs, I'm feeling probably like every 12,000 years or so. It might even be more like that. I'm not too sure of the exact records about how often this occurs. But there's basically, 12,000 year cycles, 24,000, 26,000 year cycles to where events like this take place. And we're just coming up to that point. This is still about 17, 18 years away, guys. So I think we have plenty of time to prepare ourselves in that way. But I really wanted to just share this today because I'm getting a lot of people, I'm just seeing a lot of people as well too, talking about the solar flares and the solar flash and, oh my God, what's going to happen? This sounds really, really scary. Like, okay, guys, after I did this episode 2 of the true nature of the sun, I said, okay, it's time for me to just put my own 2 cents out there, share this perspective from what I know of the sun, from what I've discovered through research, from the ancient Vedic science to Nikola Tesla, to what I'm discovering as well too through my own intuition, okay? So it's nothing to be afraid of, right? When that time comes, 17 to 18 years from now, you got plenty of time to prepare. You can have a big mark in your calendar. The feeling is it'll probably be around the time of the winter solstice, right? But don't quote me on that. That's just the feeling of when that time comes. So I would say between the winter solstice of 2037 to the winter solstice of 2038, around that particular period. Have some candles out, have a guitar, maybe invite some people over, have a nice rounding 3-day, 3 days of excitement, right? Make it 3 days of excitement over the idea of 3 days of darkness, right? It feels like it's spooky, but like I said, it's like being in the womb again, just on a worldwide level with these 3 days of darkness, right? Now, some people will say, well, Brad, will there be problems with power outages and stuff? Most likely, because there'll be an issue with the magnetic field, right? So the magnetic field will depolarize. So with that magnetic field not operational, it feels like there will be large blackouts. That's just a feeling, unless, of course, we have other forms of technological systems at that time that can compensate for that. I don't know. Then yes, looks like we'll have a lot of blackouts during that time. So it's basically just a period of complete and total darkness for those 3 days as the magnetic field switches, as the North Pole goes down to the south, as the south goes up to the north, and it switches. It's like a battery, okay? You got to have the northern and southern poles intact, right? The magnetic field goes intact. And now sonoluminescence continues. So again, all those researchers out there say, oh, the sun's going to go dark. And I say, okay, what about the stars? Shut up. Not going to talk about it. Are you going to tell me that every single star in the galaxy is going to go dark at the same time our sun goes dark? Don't think so. It's not how it works. That's not the idea, because those stars do not have their own light and they do not have their own heat. It is our atmosphere that creates that effect, sonoluminescence. All right. Alrighty. So that is what I wanted to share about the culminating solar event. Okay. And when you look up at the sky now, you realize, oh my goodness, things are really in balance, right? I'm not looking directly at the sun when it's nice and bright out, but I'm just looking up at the sky. I see how everything truly is in harmony. It's a sonoluminescent effect. It's the power of sound. It's the power of vibration. That is therefore creating light, that is therefore creating heat through our atmosphere. The Van Allen radiation belt is the oscillator resonator, and it's sending all of this beautiful radiation, because it is beautiful radiation, upon our atmosphere and through our magnetic fields and the water vapor within our atmosphere as well too. These are all part of components that are bringing about that sonoluminescent effect. So we just look at balance. I look up at the sky right now and I see everything's just in balance. I'm not afraid of solar flashes. I'm not afraid of solar flares, because that's not what the sun is about. That's not what's happening in our star system. So pass that on, guys. Like I said, if you want to pass this episode on, good. Go ahead, go for it. If you want to pass on episode 2, True Nature of the Sun, please do that as well too. All right. The next episode, episode 3, which is the amalgamation effect, will be happening not this Tuesday, but the Tuesday after next. It'll be debuting after that. So I'm basically giving myself a kind of a week and a half period. Take a little bit more time, because when I was doing episode 2, I was kind of rushing quite a bit. I was doing a lot of just major editing and trying to get it out before Tuesday. So I'm giving myself a little bit more space. So in a week and a half's time, we'll have the next episode, episode 3, the amalgamation effect. Okay? So guys, that is my presentation regarding the Culminating Solar Event. Are you guys a little bit at ease right now? I know there's a lot of people that are talking about the solar flash and all that stuff like that. So hopefully this puts your mind at ease. Like I said, it's important that you're running this through your own truth filter, okay? You're running it through your own resonance. Just like I had to, right? I had to look at all this stuff about people are saying about solar flashes and the inversion of the star's corona and the sun going dark and all that stuff. And I just basically said, bullshit. And I looked into this myself, and I was looking into ancient Vedic astrology. I was looking into what Nikola Tesla was saying and getting my own downloads and guidance and divinations regarding this as well too. So I feel a lot better around the entire event. There's nothing to fear at all. Okay, so guys, we're going to go ahead now and move on to the live chat. And we're going to start some Q&A with you guys. So if you guys do have any questions just in regards to what I've shared, or if you have any other questions for myself or for Adronis, you can go ahead and share. No personal questions here today, guys, okay? Personal questions are for private sessions and for the new Q&A forum that will be coming here in about 2.5 weeks, okay? So let's just try and keep our questions semi-personal and general. And again, I look for kind of good questions that kind of benefit the all, right? And if you guys do want to leave a contribution, thank you very much. And that will bring you into the front of the line. All right. Okay, let me just go ahead and look through the live chat here. JC says, does the moon do the same thing during a full moon? Yeah. Basically, from our perspective, it's not that the moon itself is looking at itself as a full moon. It's trajectory through, upon our sky, and its effect upon the Earth, right? So when we have these different moon phases, we're just looking at potency of energy relating to the magnetic relationship between the moon and the Earth, right? So from the moon's perspective, yeah, we're the moon. What do you want? Right? From our perspective and its trajectory and its association relationship to the Earth through the moon phases and its magnetic potency when it comes into full moon is at its fullest potency. So it's at its strongest, right? So this is all deliberate. It's all math. It's all mathematics in regards to orbits, in regards to trajectory and positions, etc. So yes, it's always doing its thing. And Genevieve, thank you for your contribution. She says, Brad and Adronis, regarding our son Saul, yes, is he or she an old, middle-aged, or young sun, relatively? Does an aging sun have negative effects on the planet? I think Adronis would be a good one a good person to come through and share this about him being, is he a young soul, a young sun, a middle-aged sun, or an old sun in that way. All right, he would be the best one to kind of look into this. So let me just take a moment to bring him through. It's a good question, Genevieve, as well too. I appreciate it. One moment as I bring Adronis through. Here we go. We are here. At this time, we bid you greetings, and thank you very much for the opportunity of this interaction today. I am Adronis of Sirius, sending love, appreciation, and gratitude to all who are tuning into this broadcast through your internet collective consciousness. We say hello to Genevieve, and we thank you very much for your unique question regarding the sun. Is the sun a youngling? Is the sun a middle-aged man? Is the sun an old man in that way? In the reference in regards to its own chronological age, it would be in what you would refer to as its young adult cycle. All right? So it is still a young man, you could say, in that particular way, in regards to its chronology, because it will still take quite a lot of time before it, in that sense, runs out of steam, in that particular manner of speaking. But in that sense, the sun is still at a relatively peppy and young age. So we would say in the idea of a young adulthood, very similar to what we would say about you regarding your early 20s. All right? It still hasn't really even technically reached its prime yet, but it's getting there. It's getting to that point. So it is a young, healthy man. All right? We thank you. Okay, that's good to hear. Glad we don't have an old man's son. He's quite peppy, so that's good to hear. Thank you, Genevieve, for your question. It was a good one, too. I appreciate it. Okay, let me just go down the list here a little bit more. Give me a second here, guys. And love to all you guys from where you are around the world. Cape Town, Las Vegas, South Africa. Great. Glad everybody around the world is here for this presentation today. Okay, let me just go down the list here. Okay, so Ake Star says, how will this affect our physical Earth? I guess GPS will be acting crazy in relation to the Culminating Solar Event. It's hard to say, right? Because, in our modern times, we have not experienced anything like this. We have not had this kind of technological grid that we have had during this time. So yeah, again, if the magnetic field is basically down under construction, right? If there's like a big gigantic etheric sign that says, magnetic field under construction, don't panic, right? It's only going to last 3 days. 3 days, we'll have it back up again. GPS, yeah, I imagine it probably will be going crazy because it doesn't have a magnetic field to work with at that time. So like I said, it's just good not to really travel. I would suggest bunkering down for 3 days, have plenty of food, have plenty of water, have your loved ones with you, and like I said, throw a kumbaya party, right? Again, some people may be panicking because they're afraid of 3 days. They may not know what's going on, and that's okay. Just take this time to go into a circle. I would say rather during that time, or shortly before that time, go into a circle and just offer blessings to the entire planet, right? Your love brings about the soothing strength effect. Okay, so yes, I believe GPS will most likely be acting crazy at that time. Mysterious Music, hope I'm pronouncing your name right, it's spelled very interestingly here, says, is this magnetic pole shift happening because our consciousness is changing from drawing in energy? Well, it's a metamorphosis. It's like a butterfly transformation, like a cocoon where the butterfly emerges. What a lot of the ancients have talked about, right? The people that are passing on the ancient messages from the ancients in the ancient indigenous tribes who have experienced this in the past. It says that this is part of a very large metamorphosis. Once it finishes, the earth is very much renewed. It's in a very strong sense of renewal. It's kind of like how people go into dark room meditations, if you guys have heard of that, where people go into dark rooms for a certain amount of days, and all they are doing is just becoming acclimatized to the darkness. And they can have very powerful out-of-body experiences, right? They can feel powerful changes, powerful metamorphosis happening through them. Well, that's basically what's happening to the earth through a 3-day period. It's like us being in the womb again. But as human beings, fully grown, right, depending, and of course, experiencing it worldwide, all across the entire globe, right? So this does feel like a very powerful metamorphosis effect. This is what the ancients have talked about, is that it's a very powerful shift in consciousness. When everything comes back to as it is, everything changes, right? There's such an incredible shift. And that's kind of like the demarcation of a new era that's coming together. So we're leaving behind an old, corrupt age. We're leaving behind an age of darkness. And we're going through this time of darkness and then coming back into the light after the 3 days of darkness. So that would represent a great metamorphosis, kind of like the twilight hours of a new golden age to come. Because that, again, is what's been prophesied by countless people throughout the ages, going back decades, centuries, many millennia, talking about this time where man is going to evolve into a powerful being, right? We're going to become powerful beings of consciousness. We are going to really mature ourselves, advance ourselves. This is the idea of the second coming of Christ, okay? And a lot of people get hung up on this idea about, oh, Jesus is coming back. This has nothing to do with Jesus. This is the second coming of Christ, right? Even when there's people like on my forums as well too, and saying, are you guys talking to Jesus a lot more? Jesus this, Jesus that, Jesus that. Don't get me wrong. Jesus was a wonderful man, okay? It's not about him. It's about the Christ. It's about what he demonstrated through himself as a Christed being. The second coming of Christ are those who embodying that very same principle, that ideal within themselves. That's all this represents. This has nothing to do with a messianic figure coming back. This has nothing to do with Jesus coming back or Buddha coming back or anything of that nature. Okay? It is the idea of the Buddha nature coming into many. It is the idea of the Christ nature, the Christ consciousness, coming into many. The Krishna spirit, etc. So it's the ideals that are coming through man. It is the ideals that are allowing us to elevate ourselves. Because Jesus said himself, what I do, each of you will be able to do, and even greater than I. Which means you'll be even greater than him. Okay? That is the idea of the return of the Christ. That's the second coming. Has nothing to do with Jesus himself coming here and saying, hey, I'm the Messiah, guys, I'm back, and I'm going to lead our people to freedom. No. That is nothing but delusion. No offense, but that's delusion. Okay? Because you're focusing so much on a man. You're focusing so much on an image, and when you do that, you're going to get lost. It's the Christ that is coming, right? And many of us already have that embodiment. Many of us already have the Christ consciousness, the Buddha nature, the Krishna spirit within us, okay? And we are working out with that. It's the idea where much of the civilization will work into that Christ-based consciousness. So again, that's what we're looking forward to, okay? So, went a little bit off track there with the magnetic pole shift, but nonetheless, it was something to bring in, kind of a segue. Okay. Here's one from Len Harar. It's kind of interestingly put for Adronis. Question for Adronis. What are the most common manifestation mistakes that we humans make? And how can we do things better? Good question. Okay. So let me bring Adronis in and he can talk about that. Manifestation mistakes that we humans make. And how can we do things better? Okay. We thank you very much, Len, for your question. Now understand that mistakes are only seen through the eye of the beholder. It is through the eye of the beholder to where you feel that error is there, that the idea of the mistakes are there. But you see, there is no idea, really from our perspective, about you doing something that represents a mistake, because it's still an experience. You label it as a mistake because you have expectations of yourself. And that's actually what you're attempting to shrink. You're shrinking the expectations of yourself to feel that if I do this, well, then I made a mistake and it's horrible, it's horrifying, it's terrifying, etc. You see, it is that labeling through, again, still looking at the ego, intellect, mind, telling you that if I do this, then there's going to be some sort of horrible mistake that's going to come. But again, that's what you're constantly putting out. If you feel something's horrible, it's a terrible mistake, then you're amplifying that event to fit that magnetic quality of how you perceive that event to be as a terrible mistake. You see? So when you come into the surrender of yourself, when you're not thinking of yourself and feeling that if I accidentally step left when I should have stepped right, and that, oh my goodness, it's such a major sin, rather than doing that, be calm with yourself. Be at peace with yourself. What we say is that it is important for you to realize that you are completely and totally present in this moment when you are at peace. You can never be fully immersed in the moment if you are in conflict. If you are barraged by the idea of mistakes happening constantly. That is not what is going to evolve you. It is the idea of the peacefulness. What can you do to soften yourself? What can you do to make yourself as light as a feather rather than being as hard as a boulder? Because when you're as hard as a boulder, you plague yourself with so many expectations. It's a terrible mistake that I did this. It's a terrible mistake that I broke up with this person. It's a terrible mistake that I left this job, etc., etc. And you become hard. You become tough. You become solid. You become rigid. Because you barrage yourself by all these expectations of yourself. The idea of manifestation by itself is simply manifestation. You do not have to concern yourself about being masterful when it comes to creating, because you're creating all the time. It is the idea that the mastery is the nature of refinement. For you to be a master is to have that disciplined level of refinement within yourself to know, I have softened myself, and I am now feeling as light as the feather. I'm not feeling as heavy as the boulder. So what we are doing is that we are softening ourselves a lot more. We are looking at all of these things that we do to ourselves. That's what you have to look at. It's not about what your parents think of you, what your best friends think of you, what your boss thinks of you, what your coworkers think of you, etc. It's not about that. It's about what you are able to discover within yourself, how you behave, what are your patterns, what are your characteristics, what do you indulge in. And all you're looking at and saying, well, these things are what's making me hard as a boulder. Rather, I'm going to turn my attention over here and work to become as light as a feather. As I become as light as a feather, all of these things start to dissolve. I'm transmuting the hard boulder, turning it into soft clay, turning it into liquid, and now turning it into vapor. You are vortexing your hardness. You are vortexing your conflicts, where they start off solid like a block of ice, where they start to soften and it becomes water, where it starts to soften even more and it becomes water vapor. That's what you're doing. This is a transmutational vortex effect. So put the vortex on everything that is hard within yourself. What have we told many of you time and time again? You're the only one here. There's only you. There is no other. And therefore, as you come into the nature of I, and you focus on that, you're able to look at all of these things that are hard, that are heavy, that are solid. Now you put a vortex around them. What happens? They go from solidity to liquid to vapor. And now they become softer. Now they're lighter than air. And now you feel yourself as a free being. You are understanding this as a God in training, because that's what you are. You're a God in training. You're looking at all these things that you feel are inadequate to yourself, are disparaging to yourself, are harsh upon yourself. But you keep going throughout the world externally, thinking that that is what's going to resolve these tendencies. It's not. We will say that again. Going through the external physical world is not going to resolve the tendencies that you yourself are experiencing from within. Inner conflict needs to be resolved inside. Right? It's like the idea that if you want to go inside your home and sit down on your couch and start cleaning up and tidying up the area, well, you can't do that outside of your house. You have to go inside. You have to go to where the couch is and start tidying up and cleaning up everything around the couch. So again, you cannot resolve an inner conflict by constantly being outside of the house. You have to go into your house. You're not wandering around the outside and saying, hey, bush, can you resolve my conflict? Hey, shrub, can you resolve my conflict? Hey, mighty oak tree, can you resolve my conflict? No, you have to go into your house and you need to get to work, because that's where the conflict lies, inside the house, inside the temple, inside the church. That is where the transformations begin. Inner work is called inner work because it is inside. It is not an outer thing. So when you realize this and saying, I've been giving too much of my focus into the outside reality. Yes, you have. But it's not a mistake. It's a realization. You're now realizing and saying, I've been spending so much time trying to figure out who I am by going outside and playing with this outside playground. That's not telling you who you are. Inside tells you who you are. Go into the house, soften yourself, put things into a vortex, and make it from solidity to liquid to vapor. All right? We thank you. Okay, thank you, Len, for your question. Very good one. Okay, JC has asked, why has the sun turned from yellow to white? Well, it's not that the sun is turning from yellow to white. It's basically the effect that we too are experiencing here on the Earth, right? As I said, when you're looking at that luminescence, that is again happening upon our atmosphere, right? It's the Earth's light and it's the Earth's heat that are basically being put together, right? And now dispersed throughout the atmosphere onto our planet, reflected through oxygen, etc., etc. Okay, so we're actually looking at a lot of the Earth light as well too. Does the sun play a part? Yes, there's part of that change, but it's also representing that the Earth is changing. Okay, so the white light effect that we see from the trajectory of the sun in the sky, a lot of it is actually because of the Earth. The Earth is going through this incredible change from yellow light to white light, right? That's showing how much the Earth has changed. The sun does not have any light or heat of its own. It is going through its own metamorphosis as well too, but through the rays that are coming upon, where we once saw in the times past a yellow sun, right, or a yellow luminescence in the sky, to now a white luminescence in the sky, that's showing how much our Earth has changed. Okay, so it's a transformation effect relating to mostly our Earth, even though our sun is going through some transformations as well too. Okay, so that's the idea. Earth is changing. Earth is shifting, moving more into the white light spectrum. Now, the reason why that's happening is because a lot of the old corrupt souls, I wouldn't say souls, but just old corrupt incarnates, right? Those particular souls, they can't incarnate on Earth anymore. Once they leave this Earth, they're booted from Earth until they work to develop themselves a lot more, refine themselves a lot more so that they can incarnate again. So the idea of the yellow spectrum moving more into the white spectrum indicates a significant change of the veil regarding the filters of incarnation that are happening here, which means that it's all just a vibrational thing. It's not about some gatekeeper saying, oh, wait a minute, it's not like the bouncer at the nightclub saying, nope, you can't come in, here's the velvet rope, you can't go past the velvet rope. It's a vibrational thing, right? And this is why there's been so much attempt to try and prevent a lot of the sonoluminescent effect coming upon our planet using something like chemtrails, for example, right? Because they're trying to keep those rays, those powerful rays that, again, through the assistance of our sun, coming through sonoluminescence, that is now filling the entire planet with this white light spectrum, because that's the vibrational range. What they're trying to do is they're trying to delay this metamorphosis effect, trying to delay the idea of them not being able to incarnate anymore, because, well, really for them it's already too late. But that's what they're trying to do nonetheless. So again, once these old corrupt figures leave the planet, they can't come back again. They are not able to incarnate until they work upon themselves, until they develop themselves into becoming that new radiance of soul that is now able to incarnate again. So a lot of the old corrupted ones are being booted off the planet. Once they leave this world, they will not be able to come back. Okay, it's the same thing with their associates. Their associates off-world, for example. They will no longer have their influences, and so that they themselves have to leave. And so this is why they're clinging on to everything right now to try and preserve their empire, but it's not going to work, right? It doesn't matter how much they cling on to something. The gigantic pillars are already crumbling down. We are imminent from a great transformation, a great shift that is happening here. We're going to see some great shifts here happening within the next few weeks as well, too, as we come into June. All right, a lot of things on the horizon right now. Let me just go down the list here a bit more. Yeah, and like I said, guys, you have to really kind of do your own research. You have to look into these things. I'm not saying that what I'm sharing here with my research is the gospel. It's like what Coyote Heart is saying here, right? I still think the sun is a bulb, but the moon has changed. It has a clearer frequency. Again, guys, you have to do your own research, right? You have to look into these things yourself. I'm not saying you guys have to believe me. This is the gospel, right? This is just what I've discovered through my own research. This is what I've discovered through my own resonance filter. If you guys don't agree with it, that's okay, right? Please do your own research. What I would say is just don't hang your hat on what another person has said, right? Hang your hat in regards to what your own resonance has said, right? Like I said, you guys don't have to believe me at all. All right, if you just like coming up here and say, oh, I just like the way your Brad talks. And that's why I'm here. Great. Cool. Sounds good, man. Right. But it's just about you running through your own filter, right? Put this through your truth filter, Jill. If you guys do divinations, okay, if you guys have your tarot decks, if you have your pendulums, if you have your oracle cards, etc., you do divination that way. Run through this, right? You basically look at episode 2, the true nature of the sun, everything that Brad's sharing. What is that about? Now you get a reading about that, okay? Put it through your own resonance filters. Like I said, I never ever share that what I bring forward here is the gospel, okay? But I look at many other things and I say, well, you know, I put these videos up because there's other people saying different things. And so I say, okay, well, that's not sitting well with me, right? That doesn't feel right at all. And I do my own research, and this is the discovery I make. For some, it resonates great. For some, they still may not be sure, or it may not resonate at all. That's okay. Put it through your resonance filter. See where it takes you, okay? Look at this with a clear heart. Now, here's the important thing as well, too. We want to make sure our hearts are clean, okay? There are a lot of people on this planet with very dirty hearts, okay? What that means is that there's a contamination. It's like cobwebs, right? There's a lot of cobwebs. There's a lot of sticky tar in the heart because of expectations. It's like what Adronis was saying earlier, okay? We get a lot of these expectations within ourselves. We put a lot of cobwebs into our heart and thinking that this is how we have to live life. We're completely consumed by morality. We're completely consumed by belief systems. And that puts this cobweb, all these cobwebs, through the heart, okay? We want to spend time to clean that out first, okay? As we come into this with a clean heart, now we're able to look at all these things with a truth perspective. This is why, in that sense, and here's a big question that comes up a lot. Why is everybody always saying something different? Who can I trust? Who can I trust? Why is all this information always so different? Who can I rely upon? Who can you rely upon? Yourself. Okay? You cannot quench the idea of the nature of your truth by looking outside. All right? It's the same thing with me. I share this as a reflection. And as a reflection, you're to take that and process it through your own heart. Now, if your heart is dirty, which means you have high expectations of yourself, you're fragile, you're plagued with belief systems that don't serve, your heart is not going to be a good tool. Not until it's clean. So some of you may just work on divination in that meantime. You gotta have a clean heart. You gotta have a pure heart. If you have a bunch of cobwebs all throughout your body that represents this emotional conflict, mental conflict, physical conflict, you're not going to be an appropriate conduit for truth to flow through you. You have to clean the heart. You have to clean the mind. You have to clean your emotional body. You have to clean the physical body. Okay? But first and foremost, the heart has to be clean. So by cleaning that, it's exactly as Adronis said, put a vortex on it. Solidity, liquid, vapor. Like you guys have discovered with the BCR-TC technique, you're filling your cells with love, and you're putting that love to work. The BCR technique is a love accumulation method. And it's a very simple one, okay? You guys may even discover something even easier than that. The reason why the BCR technique is created so simply is because it's something that's quick, right? It's basically that when you do it more and more over time, it's like you're holding out a hand, and here's a Mount Everest full of love because you've been putting that into yourself daily. And now you have this little ball, this little sphere of conflict. And so, well, here's my love energy. Look how powerful it is, right? So then I just asked the question, is my love energy stronger than the conflict? Well, yes, it is. Am I ready to clear this conflict entirely? Yes, because my love is strong. As I'm clearing that out, all of this inner working process is happening. Saying, yes, I'm far past this whole idea. I'm not concerned about this anymore. I am divinely guided. I am completely in my power. I'm completely in my strength. Love fills me so greatly. And you see that ball turn solid to liquid to vapor to energy, right? And then it's gone. Within just a matter of moments, that entire conflict is gone. How were you able to do that? Because you filled yourself with so much love on a daily basis. And all of that love is coming in, and it's cleaning out your heart. And now you're becoming a truth filter. So again, this is where I have to really emphasize that if your heart is in conflict, you will not be able to get the truth. Okay? That's a big blast, but that's how it is. When I first started, I really had a hard time getting the truth as well, because my heart was not clean, right? I had a lot of expectations upon myself. I had a lot of old woes that I still had to work through. Even when I was channeling Adronis at times, because my heart was not very clean, I would get distorted messages. Because again, you have to look at the channel. If the channel has a very, very dirty heart, if their heart is unclean, their messages are going to be distortion. In the past, I've had some distorted messages coming through. Not from Adronis, but from myself, because of my expectations and beliefs that were contaminating that message. I have to clean that out, right? Doing a lot better now than, of course, I was back then, but there were certainly some distorted messages coming through, because I would listen to what another person says, and I think, oh, that sounds really, really true, without even looking into it, and then that becomes the gospel, right, within oneself. So I've worked to clean a lot of that out, right, is to really not put any faith in any people's ideas. If there's something that a person shares, you say, okay, that's pretty interesting, right? There's a resonance there, and now I put it in tune with myself, and either through intuition it comes, or through divination, then I notice, oh, well, this is the actual answer. So they were on the right track, I feel, and now here's a little bit of extra information on there. So it's basically that you're looking at resonant reflections. So maybe I represent a resonant reflection to you, maybe somebody else represents a resonant reflection to you, okay? But now you want to take that, but don't put it through your heart until it's clean, okay? So in the meantime, maybe use some divination tools. Maybe use a pendulum, maybe use a tarot deck, maybe use an oracle deck, what have you, okay? Work with that in that way, because you're working with the higher mind, okay? Because your body right now is still going through a process. So don't put anything through your heart until you firstly have worked in cleaning out the heart. It's extremely important. Now you're being a truth resonance filter. Now you're being this divine conduit, okay? So again, the answer to that question, who do I trust? You don't trust anybody. You trust yourself. You have to clean out your heart, because you're the one that holds all the truth. But in order for you to see all that truth, you have to be the one to clean out the heart. The heart has to be clean, which means you're not thinking so little of yourself. You're not thinking so little of others. You don't have the wanting of dealing out judgment and death to others. You don't have the feeling of just being offended by every single thing you see. You don't have these contaminating belief systems that are basically just imprisoning you inside this shell. All of that has to go. You have to liberate yourself, and that's where you move into love vibration. Okay? BCR technique, plain and simple, love accumulation into yourself, clean out the heart. All right? Let's go down the list here a little bit more. Claudette says, actually, let me just go back up a bit more here. So there's a couple other questions here. Claudette, I'll come back to you. Sunny's Book of Healing. When the magnetic field switches, won't weather patterns and growing zones also change? Everything will change. Yes, it's all part of, again, the natural Earth systems, right? When the magnetic field shifts, yes, there will certainly be changes in the climate. There will be changes in weather patterns. Everything changes. But again, it's only for 3 days, right? The Earth has done this many times before, right? It's a natural process when the idea of the poles are switching, magnetic field, right? So it's a magnetic pole shift. It is not a physical pole shift, okay? So that's something important to understand. We've actually already had a little bit of a physical pole shift around the time of 2011, 2012. The Inuit up north have actually noticed that there's different orientations in regards to the trajectories of stars, right? So when they're actually looking at the North Star, it's actually off a little bit, okay? We've already had a physical pole shift, okay? That happened around 2012, okay? 2011, 2012, around that time, okay? So 2021 feels a lot more like 2012 than 2012 did. So but there are still a lot of things that happened in 2012 that we still didn't know about. One of that being a slight physical pole shift, okay? Clear Mind says, hi Brad, does the moon also have a magnetic field that produces a sonoluminescence in it? Yes, because it has an atmosphere, okay? You have to have an atmosphere to have a sonoluminescent effect, right? If you don't have an atmosphere, then the rays have nothing to bind to, right? It's like the idea there's that vibration, but the atmosphere is that component that's actually taking the rays of the sun and turning it into a sonoluminescent effect to give us the light and the heat, and an atmosphere is required. And again, mainstream science will tell you that the moon does not have an atmosphere. Yes, it does. In fact, it's quite possible to actually walk upon the moon with air, okay? but you find that there's a larger gravitational effect when you're going into the craters, because a lot of the gravity on the moon is actually created technologically. It has a thinner atmosphere than the Earth, but it still has an atmosphere. Okay, you can actually go outside and breathe air. There's actually air on the moon, but they won't tell you that right now. They just think it's just a dead ball, because partially that dead ball is a hologram in a way. It's holographic. The moon is not even what we actually see it to be, right? It is more of a dead-like structure, but there's a lot of things that are being hidden in that way. Again, we can see that with kind of the blip effect, right? Where people have seen that kind of blipping line when they've zoomed in. It's a hologram. Even on the Earth as well, too, there are certain mountain ranges that actually have holography placed upon them, because they're actually hiding certain forms of installations, hiding certain forms of observational bases as well, too. So we have that on Earth as well, too, right? It's very easy, right? For a lot of this advanced technology, you basically just create emitters, and then you can start broadcasting these images, and they can overlay over a base that is actually an observation. It's kind of like in a police station in the interrogation room, right? We have the window, right? And you see your own reflection, but on the other side, there's the officers watching you. It's kind of like that, okay? A lot of that are ET bases, okay? Maybe I'll do an episode down the road with certain mountains that represent that. So let me see. We'll go back to where I was here. Okay, Clear Mind says, "Hi Brad, does the moon also have a magnetic field that produces..." Yeah, I pretty much already answered that. Sorry, I think I've already covered Clear Mind's... I'm getting deja vu here. Claudette says, question, is that the real sun we see at the moment, or are they attempting to cover it up? Well, again, like I said, you're seeing the sonoluminescent effect of the sun through the atmosphere, okay? Yes, we have a sun, okay? We need a sun. A sun is important. Like I said, guys, the more that you understand the nature of the atom, where there's a proton and there's electrons, then you understand that that is, as above, so below, right? And microcosm to macrocosm. So yes, we have a sun, but it is not a space agency tells you that it is. NASA, okay? Never a straight answer, not a space agency, okay? They are by far the greatest dupe. They are by far the greatest magicians relating to space travel, okay? In fact, I would be very, very doubtful if NASA actually even left the Earth, okay? Maybe they have their satellites and stuff like that, but they know nothing of the cosmos. Now, it's either two possibilities. One, they're as dumb as they appear to be. Two, they do know quite a bit, but they're not sharing it, okay? But the whole idea is that NASA is basically no more different than Hollywood. You might as well just have green screens. You might as well just have photorealistic special effects and all that stuff, right? So they're not a space agency, and they never give you a straight answer, because they're not designated to do that. They're nothing but a ploy agency. It's a psyop, right? That's basically what NASA represents. It's a bunch of garbage, okay? So that's my perspective on it. Again, clean your hearts. Look into that yourself. This is what I've discovered. Okay. Mysterious Music says, so how can astronauts photograph the sun from the lunar surface? Does Moon have... Who says that they have? Right? Where is it that they've said that they actually have done that? Is NASA telling you that? So you want to be aware of that. It's kind of like what I talked about in the second episode as well, too, regarding satellites, right? There's one of two possibilities. Number one, satellites have never actually left Earth's orbit. That's basically the boundary that they can cross. Number two, they have been able to leave orbit, but they have done it through other forms of assisted technology that may create magnetic fields or synthetic atmospheres, because that's what you need to travel through space, right? Basically, if you're traveling through space, you're looking at incredible sub-zero temperatures that are so extreme that it's almost like a flash freeze, almost instantly. And whatever that object is, it becomes harder than steel with a flash freeze like that. Okay, it's our atmosphere again that is creating that sonoluminescence effect, that is bringing in the heat and the warmth. But as there's less and less oxygen, right, that heat deteriorates, or I wouldn't say heat deteriorates, but diminishes. And as a lot of the space shuttles, so to speak, have been said to be parked in the thermosphere, okay, and that's one of the outer layers of the atmosphere. If you were to go completely beyond the atmosphere, you would be subject to flash freeze, okay? So it's almost like cold fusion. Just poof, instant flash freeze within a matter of seconds. You took a space shuttle, you put it beyond the atmosphere, within seconds, flash frozen. and it would be so incredibly powerful, that flash freeze. It would be harder than steel, right? And I would say basically people inside that shuttle would be dead within seconds. Okay, if an astronaut tried to leave the atmosphere, dead within seconds. Okay, the only way that you're ever going to get past the atmosphere is when you start working with magnetic fields and you start working with vibration. That basically creates a type of dome, or kind of like a field. Right? It kind of acts like an artificial atmosphere, just like what flying saucers have said to do, right? Because they're actually able to create a magnetic field around themselves, and that is actually what protects them from the coldness of space. This again is why the sun is not just some hot bulb, because if you had a hot bulb that basically is in their Goldilocks zone or their habitable zone, you would actually have space that would actually have that warmth effect with it if it was some bulb of hot plasma. And that's not the case. There's flash freezing. So how could that happen if the sun is perceived as some gigantic furnace? It's not. It's because it's not, right? It's, again, a living well of radiation. Its own rays, its own radiation is what's actually allowing the gravitational effects of the star system to be intact. It's what's giving us our light. It's what's giving us our heat through our atmosphere, where the Van Allen belts are being the resonators and oscillators of that energy. Okay? Go into episode 2, guys. If you have not seen my episode, don't even ask any other questions. Go watch that first, and this it just fills you in. Okay? That's my recommendation here. Ninon says, can you tell us more about the hollow earth? There is no hollow earth. The earth is not hollow. Okay, Adronis has talked about this before. It is not a hollow earth. Okay, it is a honeycomb earth. It is a clustered earth. There are vaults. Okay, it is not hollow. It's like looking at your own body. When you go inside your body, you're not looking at hollowness. You have vaults, you have veins, and so forth. Yes, but you have insides. Okay, the earth has insides, but it's created as a honeycomb earth, hexagon. Okay, kind of like the soccer ball, has a bit of a belly to her. Okay, but she is a honeycomb, or Adronis refers to her as a clustered earth. Okay, so basically hexagonal clustered earth. All planets are made in that form. Okay, no, earth is not flat. I'm not going to get into that, but I've already talked about it in the past. You got to go through your own truth filter. Make sure it's clean. Okay, just go down the list here a bit more. We've got quite a few questions here, so okay, here's one from JC. It was actually a question about my stay in Mount Shasta about a year and a half ago. Almost about a year and a half ago. Was it 2019? 2019, yeah. Summer of 2019. So it's quite a while ago. JC says, you mentioned that you were staying in an Airbnb near Mount Shasta and you closed a portal an entity came out of. How does one close portals? Well, I did it with Spirit Light, right? So just like I do it with the healing code cards, where I do it with spirit codes, spirit commands, that's all I did. Right, I basically felt that there were 2 mantis beings in the room with me when I was sleeping in the middle of the night. I also feel that there was a Sasquatch outside as well too. They were kind of throwing things at the window. At the time, I thought it was still the mantis beings, but as I was looking into a little bit deeper, it was a Sasquatch outside that was trying to get my attention, while also there was these mantis beings inside the room as well too, because I could actually hear like clicking sounds from the mantis being as well. So I basically closed any portals. I just said, Spirit, if there's any portals that are open right now, close them. As soon as I did that, the noise stopped. All the activity stopped. I could feel like the energy was just dissipating away after that. Right? So that's all that really happened. I think that there was a Sasquatch outside that was trying to get my attention that I did not realize at the time. So closing portals, again, is just something that I've naturally developed. Working with Spirit, right? Committing myself to a spirit life, right? Working alongside Spirit, working alongside God, right? God and I are one. And God and you are one, right? And you're working with that. And I've just been able to develop this new capability within myself over the past couple of years. And now being able to work with this in this way, I just command Spirit, whatever needs to be done, right? And a lot of it I attempt to use in regards to others. But at times, there's times where you can use it for yourself to help in service as well too, for you to do a lot more. So basically in that time, I just felt that there was kind of unwelcomed company in that room, and I just said, Spirit, clear away any, I wouldn't say clear away, close any portals that are within the vicinity of this house, and dissipating the energies away. And so as I did that, it almost instantly stopped. It was only a few seconds, and everything went away. and I went back into peacefulness. I was only half asleep at the time, really. It was like around 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning, and this is happening, so I was still pretty groggy. And I just felt this presence, like, okay, there's mantis beings around me. And then I didn't notice that there was a Sasquatch outside. And so I just said, okay, you know what? I need to get my sleep. I have to do an event in the morning. And so I just told Spirit, clear out any portals. I do not wish to be disturbed. And I went back to sleep. So that's how it was done for me. But like I said, it's all part of a clean heart. As you work with your heart more cleanly, Spirit comes upon you, right? Spirit comes upon your energy. Spirit comes upon your body. Spirit resides within your temple. Okay, and now you can work with Spirit one-to-one, right? Spirit and I are one. And that's how we all are. Okay. Okay, someone asks, who made the Amaru Muru portal in Peru? What was its purpose? A lot of these portals are actually left there from contacts, okay? So there can be a lot of visitations that can happen there. Now, I'm not too familiar with the portal that you speak of, but if I'm basically tapping into it, it feels like there is a portal that was created through ceremony. It's kind of like a two-way split, right? So there's visitors from the other side of this portal, and then there's the kind of like the celebrators, right? The tribe that was basically doing kind of ancient rituals. The ritual masters and the visitors, okay? And it's a two-way street. It's a part of an agreement, and that portal becomes formed, right? So the visitors, whoever those visitors may be, because I'm not getting that, are able to come through that particular portal. But a lot of those portals have been deactivated now. As the civilization goes, that other bridge in that sense is not there. So if you only have a half bridge, well, you can't cross that bridge. So the remnant of the portal stays there. And thus there is, in that sense, a reenacting and a willfulness and intention for the ritual masters to come back and actually start performing what needs to be performed to basically build that other half of the bridge portal. This portal will not be open again. It simply remains as a remnant of energy. Okay? So Tom, hope that answers your question. Okay. JC says, so the human body is thank you for your contribution as well. The human body is an off-world design technology that uses the sound of the heartbeat to express the will of God, the sound and vibration. Well, it depends, because there's many different types of human body. Our human body, ourselves, was created through the earth, okay? This is why we're calibrated through the earth. So ourselves as human beings, we're part of the earth, right? When our body deteriorates, it returns back to the earth from whence it came. So for us as Terran humans, as earth humans, as Sophia humans, our body was built here, right? Basically the third density body that we understand. So, but there's a lot of wisdom, you could say, that comes off-world, yes. Because basically we have off-world contributors, right? The 22 different extraterrestrial programs that represent our DNA. So yes, off-worlders contributed to that. And of course, we were built by vessels of God that come through. So other physical vessels, physicalized vessels, that were able to construct our body that was completely in the flow of the vessel of God. This is why we say God built humanity, because God did, through the vessels that God used to allow humanity to be created in that way. God led every step of the way. So it is God's creation relating to man, right? It's God's creation relating to everything. But we're just looking at vessels in that way. And we could refer to those beings as the Elohim or the Anunnaki, etc. But there's different types of Anunnaki. There's different types of Elohim in that way. It's kind of like looking at the word is escaping me right now. Sexts. Okay. You have different sects pertaining to Anunnaki. You have different sects pertaining to Elohim. You have different sects pertaining to these creator beings. Okay. But these creator beings, in that sense, were only creating through the Spirit of God, because you can only create in that magnitude through the Spirit of God, right? So this is why Adronis always says God created man, because it was all through God's will to do it, God's intention to do it, God's intelligence to do it, to which these vessels were channeling through them to do it, right? And that Adronis has said that those particular beings that created man are no longer on your plane anymore. They've transcended physical space. They've transcended physical time. Many of them would be seen as the keepers of time right now, as the game masters. Okay, so they are again servants of God, creator beings that are watching this entire game through higher planes of consciousness. You cannot see them in the physical because they have no physical form anymore. At one time they did, but they no longer do. Okay, So that's basically what can be shared about that. Okay. Any comments on the sun simulator? I have no idea what that is, Lisa, so I'd have to look into it. Sorry. Oh, here's one from Pseudo-Wolf. Were there actual world trees thousands of years ago on Earth? Is the Devil's Tower the remnants of one? Yes. Yes, Pseudo-Wolf, you're right on the mark with that. Okay. I actually visited one, okay, when I was in Cape Town. Table Mountain was an old silicon tree. I was actually able to tap into it physically. I found there's a lot of tourists around, so I was basically finding a nice little quiet space. I put my hand on it, and I could see it. And the tree was almost touching the top of the sky. It was enormous, right? I would say thousands of feet tall, okay, gigantic. Unfortunately, they all got cut down. They all got cut down mainly for mining purposes, okay? And these are basically, quote-unquote, the imposter Anunnaki. The reptilian Anunnaki, as I would say. Those ones are the imposters, guys. When you look at Sumerian texts, and you look at the idea where there's been reptilian humanoids in that sense involved, those are imposter Anunnaki. Those are not the true ones, okay? They're imposters. So basically, a lot of them were being cut down through ancient mining because there was rich mineral resources that could be acclaimed, right? Even the silicone within the trees were claimed as valuable as well, too. So a lot of them were harvested, unfortunately, many, many thousands of years ago. And a lot of those trees were actually guarded by the Fae as well, too. So again, I could probably do an entire episode on that as well, too, about the silicon trees, right? So yes, we've had, basically, I refer to them as world trees, just as Pseudo-Wolf does. So Pseudo-Wolf, great question, man. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Here, we're almost out of time, guys. I know I'm having so much fun. I don't really want to end it, right? But I do have other things I got to take care of today, so we're going to do about 2 or 3 more questions. We're going to wrap up. Jaina says, I hope I'm pronouncing your name right, Jaina or Jana. Question, could you share pineal gland activation process? Is it bringing sunlight to it? Imaginary or real helpful? Yes, sun gazing is a pineal process. Okay, it's a great pineal activation process. I actually talk about that in episode 2 with the New Earth teachings as well too, is sun gazing. Okay, so when the sun is just starting to come up through sunrise, when the sun is about to go down through sunrise, gaze at the sun, right? It brings about incredible purification effects, pineal, I wouldn't say activations, but pineal cleansings. Okay, activation is a different thing. You guys cannot force activations upon yourself, okay? It's a very important thing to understand. You cannot force an activation to happen. It's spirit's call, it's not yours, right? So basically, the spirit of your pineal gland is the one that decides when it activates, okay? Because there needs to be a maturity cycle that comes through you. Or again, it's the right time for this to happen. Some people are born into the world with an activated pineal gland, and they're able to see all these different things. They're able to go into dimensions. They're able to see spirit, apparitions, etc. Because they're basically just continuing to where they left off, right? They had another lifetime where they were able to activate it. And now they carried on with that activation because they've come back here, and there's certain things that they're meant to do with that type of activated pineal gland, that activated sight, inner sight, etc. So you do not have the choice to activate these things. If that was the case, I'd say pretty much everybody here has an activated pineal gland, if that were the case. But that's not the case. Okay, spirit decides when you're active. Like even with my own inner sight, it's not so good. I have little bits here and there, but I also noticed that a lot of it is me holding back, telling myself that my inner sight is not too good. When you're actually telling yourself it's open, it's active, it's strong, then it actually becomes open, active, and strong. Just in compared to how I've seen other people with their capabilities, no, mine's kind of in a modern range. So it's open, it's active, it's strong, but kind of in my own way, right? So is mine activated? Yes, but in an open, active way, because I've already had my Kundalini awakening in 2018. So again, all of that happens in good timing. It's all part of spirit to bring that into yourself, right? You cannot activate your own internal systems through your own will. It has to be done at the appropriate time through spirit. Okay, but yes, work with pineal gland cleansing through sun gazing. I've also talked about Om chanting into your chakras. Okay, just as you guys have seen me, it was last week's New Earth TV Live, where I was teaching you guys how to, again, tune into the glands, tune into the chakra centers corresponding to those glands, and you Om chant into them. Okay, and as you do that, you're cleaning the chakra centers. You guys want to work on cleaning out the heart, you do that with the heart as well too. You Om chant into it. Okay, you soften yourself. Just make yourself soft. Make yourself like a feather. Be the feather, right? Or be the leaf, whichever you prefer. Okay. So we'll take one or two more questions, guys, and we're going to wrap up. Interesting thing says, what is the source of your Earth intelligence reports? The source. That's the answer. What is the source? The source. All right. Okay. This is a good question from Davijan. I think we're going to end with this question, guys. Okay, from Davijan. Adronis, why does fasting help reach spiritual enlightenment? What does it actually do to the body? Okay, one moment. We thank you very much, Davijan, for your question. What does indeed fasting do for the body, and how does it assist in the state of your enlightenment? Well, it's cleaning you up. It's detoxification. You see, what you're doing is when you're going through appropriate fasts, and some of you have different types of fasts that you use. You have what you know as your intermittent fasts. You have of what you would know as your water fasts, etc. So again, many of you may be called, may be guided to work with these particular types of fasts. But what you're doing is you're slowing down the demands of processes throughout the physical body so that those processes can work into other beneficial levels of your body to bring about a greater rehabilitation of the body. So that is what fasting does. When you're not fasting, when you're just eating a lot in that particular way, you are causing the body to dedicate a great deal of its own internal energies and processes and resources in helping to break down that food. That takes a lot of work. That takes a lot of energy. This is why many of you may get exhausted after you eat large meals, because you are demanding that the body dedicate all of its energetic resources to breaking down that food. And again, as that takes a lot of energy to do, you feel like you want to just take a nap afterwards. You feel tired. You don't feel energized in that way. So therefore, you may feel guided, compelled to work together with certain degrees of fasting, be it intermittent, water fasting, etc. It may last a couple of days, and this can bring about a greater benefit because now your resources within your body can dedicate themselves to other processes that assist in the rehabilitation of your body altogether. This is why many masters in that sense have had very long fasts, because they have trained their body to actually absorb natural life force energy from the environment. Very similar to what you would refer to as breatharianism. And that they have actually been able to incorporate all of that environmental energy, nature energy within themselves, so that they would actually function more so to the process of photosynthesis and the idea of breath. Therefore, the body can dedicate itself into other practicalities that assist in the rejuvenation, replenishment, and therefore rehabilitation of your body. And as it continues to progress, the idea of the processing systems within the bodies are at their functional, minimized states, which therefore bring about a greater potency pertaining to the life force energy that dwells within. So again, it is a rehabilitation, it is a rejuvenation. And those that may go into these deeper levels pertaining to breatharianism, and we would not recommend that until you have prepared your body appropriately. We would not recommend the idea that you are deciding to simply live off oxygen, or that you are simply looking to live off sunlight through the sonoluminescent effect. It is important that you are developing your body, that you're cleaning it out bit by bit through the work of food and through the work of drink. And then as you do that, and as you continue to work with this over time, you can develop something similar to the idea of what many of the ancient masters have done. But again, it's not necessary. You do not have to go on these very long fasts to try and appropriate your bodies in the state of enlightenment. You don't have to do that. It's the idea, again, that you're just listening to your body. And many of you will say, I will just eat when I'm hungry. And when I eat, it will not be a large meal. It'll be somewhat small because it's all that my body needs. So I'm basically taking a large meal and I'm cutting it into thirds. And I'm only taking that 1/3 of that meal when I'm hungry and I eat. The next day, I may not even decide to have any food. I will simply have a water fast. And then the day after that, all right, I'll have another meal, but I'll cut it into thirds, and so forth and so forth. Now, it all depends upon the individual, and it all depends upon body type as well, too, relating to the idea of functioning and their current state relating to the ingestion of food and their own equilibrium pertaining to dietary requirements. So it is all based upon differentiation through the uniqueness of your cells. But this is primarily the nature of the fasting, is that in that sense is dedicating other resources that are now completely open and available, that are not in that sense being very, very rigorously drained through the process of digesting a great deal of food from your body. They are now available. They're, as you would say, free agents. And they're now able to go and work on other areas of the body that require itself, because so much of the body's resources is no longer dedicated in digesting all of the processes of that enormous food, causing you to feel drained afterwards. So this is what fasting can assist you with, diverting energies in regards to more natural rehabilitation functions within your body that will improve its health overall. We thank you very much for the opportunity of this interaction. I am Adronis of Sirius. We will now conclude and return to the conduit. Goodbye for now. Okay, great. Thank you very much, everybody, for tuning in to this broadcast of New Earth TV Live today, the Culminating Solar Event. I'll be back next Friday, again, for another New Earth TV Live, where we'll be doing some group healing and Q&A as well, too. So thank you, everybody. Enjoy your weekend, wherever you are in the world, and I'll speak to you again in another perspective of the now. Take care. Thank you very much for checking out the New Earth Teachings YouTube channel. Feel free to check out my websites, newearthteachings.com, healingcodecards.com, healingcodeshop.com. Go on to healingcodecards.com to grab your body deck and your mind deck, also available in digital versions as well. And of course, you can follow me on social media, on Facebook, on MeWe, and of course on Telegram as well. Thank you again for tuning in, and I'll speak to you again in the next video. Take care and show the way.